Widely recognized in outdoor magazines and on many national television programs, Paul Newsom is a favorite among millions of American outdoorsmen. He's a national award-winning outdoor writer and producer, professional guide, past pro athlete, and record book hunter. This NRA Life member has won many game calling titles and is considered one of the nation's leading authorities on game animal and game bird vocalizations and behavior. He's a popular guest speaker and instructor to many of America's sportsmen's groups and is a principal spokesman on the NRA's Great American Hunters Tour. Now settle back, get ready to learn, and have some fun as Paul takes us on another real-life adventure.
You know, all of us that call ourselves sportsmen or hunters pursue our sport for, well, very different and truly personal reasons, whether it be the sheer solitude of the forest, or the beauty and the magnitude of the mountains and the rivers and the wildlife we pursue. Or maybe it's just the camaraderie of a bunch of good friends around a campfire. Hi, I'm Paul Newsom. And you know, for most of us, we can put our finger on it. For most types of hunting, we know what it is. It's something very definite that we like and love about it. But elk hunting, well, elk hunting is different. You know, I guess to me, elk hunting is the toughest, yet the most rewarding of all. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's why so many thousands of us pursue it so aggressively. Because it is so grueling, yet so satisfying. A buddy of mine once told me, you know, every good thing has a price. Well, maybe that's why so many of us are elk crazy. What we're going to do is take you through the 3 different periods of an elk season. We'll start off with the rut, mating season, or the bugle season as it's sometimes called. Then we'll go into that middle season, the transition season, where some elk are going out of rut, some elk are still in. It usually starts around, the beginning of rifle season in a lot of western states. Some elk are in, some elk are out. Show you how to hunt during that period of time. Then we'll go into the late season, the post-rut. After rut, no bugling, no calling. You have to hunt them totally different. This is the rut or bugle season. Usually starts around somewhere around the 1st of September to mid-September, and usually runs until the 1st to the 15th of October in most western states. Now we'll take you through some very exciting instances of bulls being called up, cow and calf calling, and let you see exactly how bulls react to certain types of bugling and cow and calf calling. Here we go. We're going to take you right along with us on each encounter. All of the highlights of our first hunt during the peak of the rut with me and my hunting partners, Jonathan Adams and Kenny Blazer. You're going to get to watch the animals react to our calling and observe their habits, and you're going to get to see our call and stalk tactics. As you'll soon see, we did hit it perfect. It was definitely the peak of the rut. This was the latter part of September, and it was obvious there were many bulls already with cows. There was lots of bugling and movement by not only herd bulls, but also by satellite bulls and loner bulls as well. This is what we call the dancing bull. And it's a perfect example of true deep rut. This young bull is throwing caution to the wind as he's enticed by our cow calls. This guy has lost it. Girls. He thinks there's a whole herd of girls over there, and he is showing off. This shows you how rut can affect the attitude and the wariness of a bull elk. We're sitting out in the wide open, cow calling him right into us. And that's a good bugle too. Sounds like a big old bull. He gets pretty close, and we're making so much noise, he really starts getting spooked. He says, "Man, I'm within range and I should be seeing a cow." The alarm bark, which is really, as you can see, not an alarm bark at all, but more of a question mark. He barks, starts to take off. We call him right back with some cow calls. This guy's in trouble. Another bark. See, he's just not quite sure. We're really still. He's only about 50 yards from us. Call him right back. A few bull chuckles thrown in. You can hear us. We're giggling pretty loud. And I'm sure he hears us too. Beautiful animal. Jonathan stopped him with that bugle. Boy, he's had enough of us. Well, as happens so many times when you're in elk country during the rut, we were on to another bugling bull within minutes. I want you to watch how close we are to this bull, and we can't see him. He's within 30 yards of us. Just barely make some antlers out through the trees. Some movement here and there. I can catch the tip of his horns, and it looks like he's a good 6-point, but you just can't, see all of him. Certainly couldn't shoot through the timber. It's amazing how close you can be to a bull elk and not get a chance at him.
trees. Good road.
On our way back that evening, we stopped to give another hunter some help in demonstrating the elk hunter's #1 preferred method of packing an elk out. It's called the 4-wheel drive pickup method.
Yeah, that's a truck full of elk, kid.
The next morning was a carbon copy of the last. Cool and clear again. It was elk heaven. They were doing their thing all around us. The hard part was picking a direction. There were literally elk moving every which direction. We heard what sounded like a good bugle and bugled back and headed toward him. Once this guy committed, he started coming in quick. Young bull walks right in on us 20 yards away. He's got us pinpointed. That nose checking the air. Those ears locked straight in on us. He says, "Hey, I'm within range. I should be able to see a cow, and I don't see anything." So he's starting to get antsy already. You guys don't look like any cows or bulls I've ever seen. He's not buying it. Soft cow calling brought him back around. Close. He barks and bugles as he moves off. Later that afternoon, we moved to a different area several miles away, and it wasn't long before we were on to another bull. want you to watch how quick this guy comes in and checks us out and leaves again. He's got the sound pinpointed. Runs in. Turns and he's gone.
Not bad, short on one side. There he goes. Not a bad bull.
By the time we worked our way back to the truck, wouldn't you know it, a bull bugled directly above us. Came in quick, straight to the cow calls and the bugle. As you can see, we're using non-aggressive or non-threatening bugles, kind of like spike bull bugles or young bull bugles, and following it up with some soft cow calling. That's kind of our strategy here. It's a standoff. I froze and he froze at the same time. Now when I bring my gun up, he's certainly not going to like it. He's out of here. Or is he?
No. 5x6.
We start cow calling again and stopping. That question mark call, that alarm bark. Jonathan bugles, gets his attention, starts grunting, gets him turned around, interested again. There's a bull and some cows down there. Sure didn't look like it. Starts easing back in. For a minute.
Way too much stress. What a rush.
We decided to go back to the truck and drive around to the next big ridge. And when we got out, we were immediately welcomed by two different bulls sounding off in the bottom below us. We picked what we thought was the most aggressive sounding of the two and headed that way. From the looks of things, we were definitely in his territory. The last quarter mile, we slowed down and started taking it really easy. Now, if you're a turkey hunter, you can really understand this tactic. In the spring of the year, you know, when you're having to call toms with hens, a lot of times you call the hens to you. Well, this is a tactic we're using now. He's got a cow with him, and we're combining some cow calling with young bull bugling and getting that cow to come in, and of course, he's bringing up the rear. Here comes the cow, straight down the trail to us. I want you to watch her when she spots us. That neck's like a periscope. Whoops. What's that? Up, up. No, it's not any cow I've ever seen. I'm out of here. And she stops and looks back in the bull's direction. And heads back exactly the way she came. There she goes. And of course, the bull's going to bring up the rear. I want you to watch a couple of things. We stop him twice. Once with some cow calling, and the second time with some bugling. Wow. Biggest 5-pointer I've ever seen in the wild. He's still up there. There's an old saying among hunters, don't get greedy. Well, we'd had it too good. Perfect days, lots of bulls and cows coming to the calls. Everything was right. Then, rain. 2 days of rain that later turned to snow. Somehow this brought it all back into perspective, and that old sense of urgency that most hunters have suddenly came back. The only good news was that there were still some hot bulls bugling and moving in the rain, and it wasn't long before the action began. There were 2 bulls. The biggest one quickly disappeared out of sight. From their continued bugling, it sounded like one or maybe both of them were circling around the ridge. So we thought we might be able to circle around from the opposite side and intercept them. It sounded like he was hanging up on the top ridge just above us.
down.
Well, it had worked. Even though our luck had taken a turn for the worse, we predicted right. We figured the two bulls must have split up. Anyway, this guide kept moving on around to the top of the ridge, bugling and returning our calls. Close to the end, we were actually heading both in the same direction toward each other. The big 750-pound wapiti bull took 2 lethal shots in the vitals from my 250-grain 338 Magnum. Truly amazing. I'll say it again. The toughest big game animal in North America. It had appeared the big 5-year-old bull had damaged the back 3 tines on his left antler while still in the velvet. Even so, with a 44-inch spread, 46-inch main beams, and many wonderful meals of some of the most delicious meat in the world, he was an impressive animal. Usually, hunters willing to do some hiking and climbing on a big game hunt have a better chance than those who seldom leave the truck. Now, the air at 10,000 feet is a lot thinner than it is at sea level, so a short hike can be very physically draining. So if you want to up your chances for success and you're hunting high altitudes, well, you better get into some shape. Simply put, high altitude means anything above 5,280 feet. At higher altitudes, everyone is affected one way or the other. Now, the 2 main ingredients missing in a high-altitude environment are decreased oxygen content and humidity in the surrounding air. Now, this sudden change in altitude can cause a lot of different symptoms depending on the person. It can cause nausea, diarrhea, restlessness, shortness of breath. It can even cause headaches, nasal congestion, and increased heart rate. The initial discomforts and complaints should disappear as your body adjusts to the change. Now, this may take a day or two, or it could take weeks. My best recommendation is, well, not to overdo. When you arrive, take it easy for the first 48 hours. Eat lightly, avoid alcohol, and decrease your overall alcoholic consumption. But most important, no physical exertion the first day. Believe me, there's nothing like a good physical condition to minimize the effects of high altitude. I like to start out about 3 months before hunting season with a good exercise program. But check with your physician first on an exercise program that you can tolerate. With some planning and a little extra work, your next big game adventure could be a real success. Besides, you probably need an excuse to get back into working out anyway, haven't you?
The Rocky Mountain elk story in America is truly an amazing one. With as few as 30,000 animals around the turn of the century, today, through sportsmen's efforts and dollars, we can boast a population of over 500,000. Remember, elk are animals of the timber, and they only come out to eat. So your prime time is just before sunup, and then again just before dark. But make a note, sometimes they might make a change in locations about midday, so be ready. Now, the 3 main ingredients that determine antler growth are nutrition, genetics, and age. When you get a glimpse of that bull, you have to make a decision on him pretty fast. The easiest way to count points and determine rack size is to look at the royal point and count back. Let me explain. Let's look at each point on one side of an elk rack. Let's start from the base of the antler at the skull. Now, the main beam comes out, and the first point off the main beam is the eye guard. And continuing on up the main beam, the second point out is the bez. The third point out, or tine, is the trez. And the fourth point up, the largest of all, is the royal point, or sword point, and is the most prominent. Now, all you have to do is just glance at the sword point and count on out to the end. Now, if the bull has 2 points past the sword point, he's a 6-pointer and considered a trophy. Easy, huh? I remember an old-timer bragging across the campfire to my dad and I down in Comishes that he could take virtually any game in North America with a .22 mag. Well, knowing the physical makeup of game animals and the ballistics of that little gun, I'd have to concede that, yeah, he probably could, given special circumstances, exact bullet placement, the time and the luck to get in the proper position undetected by the game. But number one, it'd be illegal, and number two, it'd be very impractical to even think about. Now, I've taken elk with 270s and 30-06s, and given certain circumstances, they do a good job. But let's get serious about elk rifles for a minute. Today, most elk hunting is usually done under less than ideal conditions with a minimal amount of time. Let's face it, we just don't have the same amount of extra time as we used to. So, when and if the moment comes when that big 6x6 steps out, well, we want to make the best of it. Plus, we hunters have a responsibility and an obligation to dispatch our game as quickly and as cleanly as possible. And it's a fact that elk go down quicker, travel shorter distances, and are found more often when a large caliber is used, such as a 300 mag, 338 mag, 375 and up. Now, if you're a casual or a part-time elk hunter, you probably couldn't justify buying just one gun for elk hunting, especially if you went just once every 4 or 5 years. But if you're a serious elk hunter, it's something to consider. Heavy controlled expansion bullets are best for deeper penetration through the thick hide, bone, and muscle structure. Now, I know the discussion over the advantages and the disadvantages of differing calibers for elk might go on forever. But there's one thing for sure. These bigger calibers will bring elk down, no matter what the angle of the shot and no matter how far the bullet must travel to reach a vital area. So for elk, the best gun for you is the biggest one you can handle. This is the transition season, that middle part of an elk season, usually beginning around the 1st to the 15th of October in most western states and coinciding with rifle season. Some elk are still in the mating season or bugle, some aren't. Some are going out. Some bulls are leaving the herds of cows and some are still with them. It takes different hunting techniques altogether, so let's check them out. There's a little bull. There's a little 4-pointer.
Yeah, but
After the rut, bulls turn the switch off. They become quite the opposite from their vocal, rowdy, and aggressive mating season behavior. They'll head off either by themselves or with other bulls to a recovery area and try to regain some of the strength and weight they've lost during a rut. before the deep winter hits. But remember this, not all elk go out of rut on the same day or even the same week. It's a gradual thing. It also happens earlier the further north you go. Yellowstone elk, for example, will usually be out of rut as early as the first week in October, while more southern elk down in New Mexico, Arizona, or even southern Colorado can sometimes be bugling through the end of October and even on into November. Now, this transition time even fluctuates in specific areas. Elk may be bugling and responding well on one mountain or drainage and not on another, meaning some cows are still in estrus and bulls are still with them. Now, what I'm saying is be flexible and be ready and prepared. And don't leave your calls at home. My hunting partner Jim Yarborough and I had been hunting for a couple of days with not much luck. Not many bulls were sounding off, and we were using mostly post-rut tactics for hunting them. Lots of hiking, looking for sign, and tracking. But as luck would have it, well, sometimes anyway, we talked to another elk hunter at the check station as he was checking in a good bull, who told us that there were several bulls bugling in the drainage he just came from, so we thought we'd check it out. Now, what you're about to see is a tactic that I've labeled the kidnapper method, and I've got to tell you, it's just using a little common sense. It's simply locating a herd bull by some bugling and listening for response, and stalking the herd until you can get in behind them, in their tracks, and follow until you can get within calling distance, say a quarter mile or so, less if possible. Now remember, you're just where they were, where they came from a couple of minutes ago. Now start imitating a young bull with some non-threatening spike bugles and mix it up and follow it with cow calls. Now what you're telling that herd bull in front of you is, hey, I must have left a cow or two on that ridge we just came from, and now there's that young satellite bull bugling back at us that was hanging around here, and he's got my cows. Now that herd bull feels the urge to go back with his entire herd with him and pick them back up and put that younger bull in his place. The kidnapper method. I'll tell you, elk hunters, it's worked for me many times. That's just what we were able to do here. We dogged that bull for hours with his herd until we finally got close enough to try it. For the last half mile or so, we were following really fresh sign. We could actually smell them. We knew we were getting pretty close, and we caught a couple of glimpses of the herd bull and his cows through the trees from a distance. We felt like we were getting almost close enough to set up and call.
It looks like there's some tracks here and there's some sign. This could be the place. Go ahead, try it. I think those elk come out of those quakies, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. Sure do.
Probably went right down this ridge down in the bottom here.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's give them a toot.
ease right down around here and set up and do some calling. You can get back behind and maybe to one side of me, and if they do start coming, well, I'll shut up.
All right.
And you can keep calling. Let's go.
We were using the old double calling tactic, Jim on the bugle and me on the cow calls. If they did start coming back up to us, I'd shut up calling. He would keep on taking the attention off me. That bull was bringing it all the way back up to us.
Whoa, they're coming up the ridge.
He was actually behind his cows, hooking them in the rear, pushing them all the way back up. He had a couple of young satellite bulls with him. He finally showed himself.
He's down. Here's a good one, Jim. Woo! Boy.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you, brother.
Now let's get some tips on meat and trophy care from a real legend in the hunting and taxidermy industry, the late Bill Flagg of the Flagg Group in Dallas, Texas.
Well, the first thing to do naturally is to get the insides out of it as quick as possible, and that will eliminate having to cut the throat. The animal needs to be bled properly. So if you get the insides out of him and field dress him right quick, that'll bleed him good. And then, if it's going to be any length of time before you get back to him, it needs to be hung up. If the animal is going to lay out overnight, you want to get it up off of the ground, and it's best if you will split open the neck. If it's a trophy that you're going to have mounted, you need to split it down the back of the neck, and then cut the cape back behind his shoulders and peel that all the way forward, and then get the goozle out, the windpipe out of his throat, and let it air out. An animal laying on the ground or hanging up even overnight, the hair on the neck is such great insulation that even if it's in 20-degree weather the next day, it's still going to be warm, and you're going to have some sour meat in the neck part. The best thing is to hang it out at night in a tree or someplace where it'll get air all the way around it. Then when the sun comes up, or before the sun comes up, if you'll take it down, wrap it up in a tarpaulin, and put it on some logs in the shade, where it'll be in the shade all day, it'll last a long time. Getting the skin off is very important because it lets the heat come out of the meat, and it lets it cool out. And the meat has to be cooled all the way through, because if you leave it warm, it's going to spoil next to the bone. So on a warm day, or it warms up to 70 or 80 degrees in the daytime, like it does oftentimes in the mountains, it can spoil in a couple of days.
Proper cuts in caping a good animal that you want to mount are very important. Where do we start? What are the cuts that we make?
Well, you need to split it up the back of the neck. Most animals have a natural kind of a part up the back of the neck, and go from his withers on up to between his horns, and then cut around the body behind the front legs. You come down to the legs, cut the back side of the leg and around about his knee, and leave plenty of long brisket on the bottom for the taxidermist to so he can make a good full shoulder mount. And you just turn that wrong side out down to his horns, and you Y out from that split down the back of his neck to each horn and around the horn, and then just turn it wrong side out over his nose. You have to be very careful and not cutting holes in the eyes and the lips. It's important for a taxidermist that you leave a lot of the inside lip in there. And after you get it skinned off completely, you have to go back and you have to flesh it. And the lips are what we turn the lips. You split them down to where you can get salt down next to the skin and get all the meat possible that you can off of it.
Guy should take salt with him to the field.
It should be salted, yes.
What kind of salt?
Just regular, like table salt is the best.
How many pounds of salt, Bill, to say a big bull elk? How many pounds of salt should we put on a hide and a cape?
It takes about 5 pounds to do the cape and about 5 pounds to do the skin. And that has to be spread out flat and the salt rubbed in and not let any wrinkles stay in the skin that don't get salt. Then after they're salted, roll them up and put them in the shade. And then the next day, it's a good idea to unroll it. Water will run out of it. You unroll it and put a little bit more salt on it, and then roll it up and let it finish draining. Keep it as cool as possible and as clean as possible.
Experts agree one of the main causes in hunters losing crippled or wounded deer is incorrect shot placement. But in order to have correct shot placement, we must first understand the makeup of a deer's body. This dotted line represents the vital region, the heart and lung area of a deer-like animal's body, such as a whitetail, mule deer, or elk. Now the heart region lies right in here on an elk, with all the rest of this vital area being lung. A couple of things occur. The hunter underestimates the yardage to the game animal he's shooting at, so he raises his sights, usually right in here. Number two, he usually sights in past the front shoulder of the animal, so he's high and a little far back in the lung area. Now, a big animal like an elk can run a long, long ways with just a little portion of his lung area clipped out. Given a choice, my crosshairs would be just about there. Of course, if the animal's quartering to you, quartering away from you, facing you straight on, whatever direction or angle, keep in mind that placement and that vital area, whatever angle he's positioned. Now let's apply what we've been talking about back up a ways in practice. One simple but very effective method a lot of hunters use is to sight your gun in for 2 inches high at 100 yards. Now, most modern, high velocity, big game calibers are very flat shooting. Sight them in 2 inches high at 100 yards. You'll be dead on at 200 yards and about 4 to 5 inches low, somewhere in that range at 300 yards. Very effective method and very simple. Most big game shots are taken somewhere between 1 and 200, 250 yards. So the 300 yard shots, unless you're just an expert shot, should be avoided if at all possible. We've already got our big game rifle sighted in. It's dead on. We know where it shoots at 100, 200, and 300 yards, right? Well, there's no use battering our shoulders and our pocketbooks by practicing over and over at different yardages and different sitting positions, standing and kneeling, etc. With this stuff, we can get the same results with our old trusty 22. So let's take some different positions and see what we can do.
When you're faced with that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, homework becomes very important. That's why it's so critical to practice from different positions, because you never know what kind of target or when a big game animal is going to present itself. Get used to shooting from different yardages and different positions with your trusty little 22, and you'll feel much more comfortable with those quick offhand shots in the field.
Let's go see how we did. Well, let's see. We've got a pretty good group, but they're low and right. So that means I need to work on this gun a little bit. But you get what I'm talking about. Shoot from the different distances in the different positions. And that standing position is a killer one. Boy, especially at over 50, 60 yards. At 100 yards, I mean, that crosshair is moving like crazy when you're standing. So practice on that one more than the others. There's one thing a hunter can't get enough of. Well, it's probably several things, but one is knives. It seems that no matter how many I take, I usually end up wanting one more. I try to take an assortment of general purpose knives to use around the camp. I like a folding hunter. Also, I usually pack some type of saw, some type of small saw for bone cutting, odds and ends, etc. But my really important knives are my big general purpose skinning knife, 4 or 5-inch blade and a good round contour on it. And for that really small work around the cape, all the way around when you're caping a big game animal, a trophy or skinning one, is a smaller caping or skinning knife. It really helps out in those small places. And of course, don't forget to take some kind of field sharpening tool, because skinning or caping a big game animal such as a Rocky Mountain elk can really dull your knives. This is the late season, post-rut. The bulls have already left the herds of cows. Cows are by themselves, bulls are by themselves, or with groups of other bulls. Takes different hunting techniques altogether.
Post-rut. It's all hiking, looking for sign, tracks, and droppings, and then stalking to within range. It's tough, it's challenging, but then again, what part of elk hunting isn't?
Hate it. Elk hate it.
The first day of the November gun season was really tough. The snow, combined with the strong wind, made things very difficult. Had this been the last day of season, well, I might have stayed in camp. I doubt it. My tactics were simple. Cover as much ground as I possibly could and try to intersect fresh tracks or spot elk. You'll notice I'm still carrying my calls also, and I'm still using them. I believe calls are very helpful even during this late post-rut period. You can use them for a couple of different purposes. Number one, to cover your noise moving through the timber, and number two, to help stop a bull if you spook him for that shot. After about an hour of walking, Jim and I hit some tracks, and it wasn't long before we caught up with some of the herd. Now, I've got to tell you, I really believe a lot of elk hunters usually fail because they just don't take to the timber. Hunt elk where they live, in the dense forest. Now, it wasn't always like this, but you've got to remember, today, elk are definitely animals of the timber, and a hunter must be ready for that. You must become aggressive and go after them. It was a sizable herd, and what was surprising, at this late date, it still had some big bulls in it. And that was all the more reason to stay after them as far as we possibly could. They were definitely on the move. We knew we had spooked them, but we thought they'd settle down with a little time. We finally caught up with them, but they were certainly not calmed down. They were moving all around us, but I couldn't make out any larger bulls, all cows and spikes. We got in behind them again and began dogging their tracks. It seemed like we were getting close, but just not close enough, you know. The crusted snow was really giving us fits and was just impossible to walk quietly in. We finally decided to give them a rest, or us a rest, let them have a chance to settle back down and come back the next morning. My plan the next morning was to have Jim drop me off on top of the mountain, and I could work the ridges and old logging roads down to the bottom about 5 miles away by evening. I stuck with the same tactics that had proven successful many times before during this post-rut period. Walking, hiking, climbing, and glassing, looking for fresh sign or trying to spot elk, then tracking within range. All the while using calls to mask my noise and keeping them handy to help stop elk I might have spooked along the way. I was just about to reach the edge of the main ridge and drop off when, and I don't know if they were coming to my calls or if they just happened to be there, but I do believe the calling helped, maybe in just not spooking them. But anyway, all of a sudden I caught movement off to the right. Three bulls running through the timber. The biggest of the three was in front, and I couldn't get my scope on him.
Spike.
It had seemed like the cow calls had settled them down a little. They didn't seem too spooked. Well, with the sun quickly slipping in the west, I didn't have much time. I saw the general direction which they were going, so I decided to try and circle back downwind and intersect their path. Well, it worked. I came out of the stand of timber, and there was the lone big bull. My only problem was, he saw me too. Both shots were in the vital area. I'll say it just one more time. Elk are truly amazing animals. Tough to hunt, tough to bring down, but totally worth it. Other recommended reference material for elk hunters is Calling All Elk by Jim Zumbo and the NRA's Western Big Game Hunters Handbook. When NI hunters plant poison dog food in your favorite hunting spot,
You'll say, where's the NRA?
When they harass you and scare away game, you'll say, where's the NRA?
When they close the seasons in your hunting land,
you'll say, where's the NRA?
When they spike your access roads, you'll say, where's the NRA?
And when they ban your hunting guns, you'll say, where was the NRA? And I'll say, where were you?
Join the NRA now to protect your hunting heritage and defeat the anti-hunting agenda, and to get great member benefits for joining the fight.
The NI hunters are out to stop every form of hunting. Or even after my dad's old 12-gauge self-loader. Well, I think it's worth a fight. And you know the NRA fights.
Maybe they'll spit at you or yell at you, but don't let them get to you. Instead, let's get together, join the NRA, and pass hunter protection laws in every state.
It's not protesters' hollers, but hunters' dollars that pay for wildlife management. Dollars now being wasted on fighting anti-hunters in court instead of helping wildlife.
I call that stealing. Help protect the hunter's heritage of wildlife conservation. Join the NRA.
Call now, 1-800-231-4NRA, and get a year of great magazines, a no-fee Visa card, a Hunter Orange NRA cap, special insurance benefits, plus access to world-class hunter safety and skills training. Defend your hunting heritage through the one group lawmakers listen to, the NRA.
You see, when hunting is gone forever, your son won't ask, where was the NRA? He'll ask, where were you?
Where were you?
Where were you? Where were you?
Call now, 1-800-231-4NRA. So come on, join the NRA now.